Many thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this week's video. Now I know I've mentioned this quite a few times recently, but I could not be more excited to finally release my most requested tutorial series ever tomorrow, October 13th, in conjunction with the launch of the 5-day deal. Now, if you're not familiar with what the 5-day deal is, it's basically the ultimate photography tutorial sale that it only happens once a year for, you guessed it, just 5 days. And in this year's bundle, well, it's by far the best ever, with courses from many of the top photographers and educators in the world. And I'm absolutely honored to have my brand new course, Lightroom Masks, Unlock the Potential, as a part of this year's bundle. Now, in this week's episode, I want to share with you some of my favorite masking tips and tricks and best practices from my new course. And if you do find some value in it and enjoy this week's video, please consider checking out the link below, as you can pick up my new course along with a boatload of incredible teaching content for an insanely low discounted price with the 2022 photography bundle. Now, this is an image from quite a few years ago from Arizona, which I really do love this photograph. Now, one of the things that I love most about the Lightroom, the masking module, or the masking panel, if you will, is the different ways that you can customize it. And one of the things that I rarely hear people talk about is the view overlay modes. So if I come up here and hit open up the masking panel, let's just create a quick mask. Let's just hit select sky, and we'll let Lightroom use its AI feature to select the sky. And of course, it did a very good job there. But if you hit these three little dots right here, it's going to drop down the mask overlay modes. And what's really cool is you can change these to whatever works best for you, whatever you can see better. So this is the default color overlay. You can change this to color overlay on black and white, which basically puts the mask in color and everything that is not a part of the mask in black and white. You can do image on black and white, which basically puts the mask just a mirror copy of the image and everything else in black and white that's not affected by that mask. You have image on black, which is basically the actual mask, which is the image once again, and everything else that's not a part of that mask in black. And then you can do the same thing, which is just the opposite, which is going to be image on white. And then you can also do white on black. And this is kind of what is more synonymous with Photoshop. Everything that is a part of the mask is going to be white. Everything that is not part of the mask is going to be black. And this is just a really good way to be able to see the mask and what is being affected and what is not being affected. But this is the standard Lightroom default, which is the color overlay. Now you can actually take it a step further and change the way the colors are actually viewed as well. So if you hit this little square here, its default is red. You can actually change this to any color that you want in the spectrum here, whatever is easiest for you. But what I find even more value than that is this opacity slider. You can make the opacity of those masks much more or much less. It's totally up to you. And you can even change this to where it's targeting the affected area or the unaffected area. I always like to target the affected area to be able to see exactly where that mask is being affected or where that mask is targeting. Now, beyond those kind of customization modes, the most common shortcut key that I use when using the masking panel is the shortcut key O, and it gives you the ability to quickly turn mask overlays on and off. So if I just hit the shortcut key O, you can see that mask is turned on and off. You can also see that by the show overlay tab, or kind of call out box right here, checkmark box, that's the word, as I toggle this on and off. So that shortcut key O is something that I use constantly whenever I'm using this masking panel module. And just about every single photo that I edit inside of Lightroom has at least one mask somewhere on it. Now, let me come up here and let's just delete this mask so we can start fresh. Now, as you can see, we did do the Sky AI, which I think that the Sky AI works really, really well. In this type of scenario is a very common use case for using a filter, because I want to darken down the sky a little bit. I want to create a little bit more of a moodier atmosphere. This was a very stormy afternoon that I was at this location, but it didn't quite come through in the photographs. So I want to darken all of this down. But as you can see, there isn't a very clean horizon line here like if we were at the coast. There's these very jagged mountains just breaking that horizon line. So we're going to have to create a highly targeted mask for this. So I'm just going to come up here. I'm going to hit select sky. And as you can see, it did a very good job selecting just the sky. But there is a fatal issue with this. Now, let me just go ahead and let's apply some edits to it. So let's darken down the sky a touch. Let's bring down these highlights a little bit, maybe boost the clarity some to really make it look more dramatic, and maybe warm this up a little bit just to kind of add that kind of stormy cloud look to it. And I think that is starting to look pretty good right there. Let's just toggle this on and off. And you can see how good of a job that did. And that's kind of the problem, is it's almost too perfect. It doesn't really look realistic, especially where the mask where the mask starts to meet where the horizon line is or the land is. So especially like right through here and right through here, this doesn't quite look super realistic. So a really, really great way to solve that and make it look more realistic is let's hit these three little dots right here. We're going to intersect this mask with a linear gradient. And I'm going to drag this linear gradient across the sky. And you might have issues keeping these straight sometimes, but if you just hold down the shift key, it kind of locks it in place. So you don't have to worry about trying to keep it straight. But I basically want to make this mask kind of feathered a little bit. I'm just going to bring it up a little bit here. And I want that mask to be feathered as it gets closer to the horizon. And now if I toggle the sky on and off, if I toggle the linear gradient on and off, you can see what that has done. It basically feathered that gradient towards this area, the bottom area right through here. And it just makes that mask look much, much more realistic. So intersecting the sky AI or intersecting a sky mask with a linear gradient and creating a fall off so there is that kind of filtered or that softer transition zone makes those sky masks much, much more realistic. And if I turn that mask, the total mask on and off, this is before and after, before and after. And if we want to make any kind of change to that linear gradient, I can just kind of lift it up and down. And as I move this up and down, you can actually see that gradient move with it. So I think I'm just going to bring it down to maybe a little bit lower to about right there. If we want the feather a little bit more, we can do that. Lift it back up. But ultimately, that looks much, much more realistic right there. So I think that is really starting to look better now. It's starting to have more of that moody, kind of stormy, ominous feeling that I had when I was on location. So another really cool thing to do, let me just come up here and let's just delete all this, start fresh again. So delete that. So I'm gonna come up here again and I'm gonna hit select sky. And of course it's gonna select the sky, but a very, very good way to create a quick mask that's gonna target the ground is just to come up here to the sky mask, hit these three dots and hit duplicate and invert. And it's basically going to create a mask that's the exact opposite, which is going to be targeting the entire ground, which is super, super beneficial. One, because it's insanely quick to do and it's very, very refined. So if I come back up here to sky and let's just label this sky to stay organized here. And let's do the same thing again. Let's darken it down a little bit, reduce those highlights some. Let's boost the clarity, add a little bit of drama, warm it up a little bit to kind of create that stormy look. And I think that that's starting to look pretty good. And I'm not going to add the linear gradient here just because I already showed you that. And I want to be cognizant of everyone's time. So now if I want to balance out the exposure a little bit, because I have the sky is dark now, but the ground is a little bit, is kind of quite a bit brighter now than the sky. And it looks a little odd. Almost looks a little bit HDR to me. So I'm going to come up here to this inverted mask. Let's label this ground. And I'm going to just reduce the exposure of this a little bit. And you can see what that's doing. And what that's going to do is balance out the exposure of the land and the sky, creating a more balanced photograph, but also a more realistic image. And I think that is starting to look pretty good. Maybe even warm it up just a touch if we wanted to. I think that looks good. Let's toggle this on and off. So that's before and after, before and after. And the sky, the not having the linear gradient is actually bugging me. So I'm gonna come up here really, really quickly and we're gonna intersect this mask with a linear gradient. We'll just show you how quick this can be done. And I think that something about right there looks pretty good. Now let's toggle all of these masks on and off. So this is before the local adjustments and after the local adjustments. Before and after. And that made a world of difference. And no global adjustments were done there. Those were all local adjustments. An adjustment just for the sky and an adjustment just for the ground. And I think it looks much, much more powerful now and more accurately resembles what it felt to be on location. Now, one of my favorite aspects of this scene is this cactus area here, but we darkened down the entire foreground, which also darkened down that cactus as well. And if you look up here at the thumbnail, I always like to look at the thumbnail in the upper left-hand corner because I find that when you toggle before and after switches on and off, a lot of times it's easier to see what's happening in that thumbnail as opposed to the larger image. You can see what I mean right here when I toggle the ground on and off. If you look at that thumbnail, it's a little bit easier to see what is being impacted. So what I want to do now is I want to bring back a little bit of that brightness, but just to the cactus here. I don't want to brighten up the shadows area between all the cactus here. And as you can imagine, it would be kind of hard to paint an additional exposure or highlight boost just to each arm of the cactus. There's a really quick way to do it. I'll show you right now. Come up here to create new mask. Let's do a radial gradient. I'm going to draw a big radius right through here. I'm gonna bring it down to the bottom. Let's lift this up about here. Let's make this a little bit wider. Something about like that I think looks pretty good. I'm gonna bring this feather down because we're actually gonna refine this with a mask so the feather's not super critical. So I think that that is looking pretty good. Now let's boost up the exposure a little bit and we can bring the whites up some. Maybe we want to introduce a little bit of texture to add a little bit more of that kind of jaggedness, or kind of add a little bit of that danger quality to the cactus, really make that cactus stand out and the sharpness of it come through. Maybe even boost that clarity just a touch right there. Let's toggle this on and off, before and after, before and after. Let's label it cactus. But as we toggle this on and off, you can see that that has definitely increased the brightness of the cactus, but it also increased the brightness everywhere in this radial filter, and that's exactly what I do not want to do. So I'm going to come up here to these three dots, and we're going to hit Intersect Mask with a Luminance range. And this is going to give us the ability to target a specific brightness value of this cactus. So what I want to do here, and this is kind of a confusing area that I hear a lot of people about, is like, when do you know which way to drag this luminance slider? I'll show you real quick. So if you drag it from the left, if you think about a histogram, all the shadows are on the left side. If I want to target the highlights, I'm going to drag it this way, which basically means I'm going to eliminate all those shadows. If I wanted to target the shadows and I want to eliminate the highlights, and all the highlights are on the right side of a histogram, I'm going to drag it this way to eliminate those highlights. But in this scenario, of course, I want to eliminate the shadows. I don't want to target the shadows. So I'm going to hold down the Option key, and I'm going to drag from the left, eliminating all of those shadows. And you can see them in the bottom of this image. And don't worry about everything up here, because that mask is only targeting this area right through here. I know you can still see it though, but you can see that that black area is starting to come through, and we're beginning to eliminate all of those shadows. I'm going to kind of feather this a little bit right here, kind of bring this over some to make that transition in the mask a little bit softer. And I think something about right there is starting to look pretty good. Maybe right there. And now let's toggle this on and off and see how we did. So this is before and after, before and after. And you can see that now that mask is no longer targeting all of that shadow area. It's only targeting the area that we want to brighten up, which is the brighter area of the cactus. We can kind of bring it up just a little bit more to make it easier to see at home. This is before and after. And if you look at that thumbnail in the upper left-hand corner, you can really see it. Before and after, that's after, and before, back and forth. So let's toggle the entire edit on and off now. And keep in mind, we just did three masks: sky, ground, cactus, that's it. So this is before and after, and I think that that has made a world of difference. There are a couple of things I probably will make tweaks to, but I wanted to make sure that you can easily see these adjustments at home. So I think you can see how powerful the Lightroom masking panel is, from the different linear gradients and radial gradients, the adjustment brush, which we didn't even talk about, all the different ways you can customize it, and along with the luminance range mask, and we didn't even mention the color range mask. And there's a ton of other kind of tips and tricks that I mentioned in the full-blown course, which is over 90 minutes of teaching content. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you did find some value in this video, please consider checking out that link in the description below, because you can pick up my course along with the entire 2022 photography bundle from the 5-day deal for an absolutely ridiculously low price. So I do hope you enjoyed this week's episode. And before I do wrap things up, I just want to say a huge thanks to the sponsor of this week's video, which is Squarespace, who I use for all of my website and e-commerce needs. Squarespace provides a dynamic and attractive online platform to create your website. You can display your photography using Squarespace's professional portfolio designs and customize the layout and look and feel of your gallery just so you can make it your own. With Squarespace's traffic overview feature, you can track trends in page visits and views to better optimize your content, and you can even grow and engage with your customers with Squarespace's email campaign tools, which will enable you to create engaging emails that match your website with your products or blog post and logo, just so your messaging remains consistent. So if you're looking to start a new website or possibly upgrade your current website, check out squarespace.com/Mark Denney for a free trial and 10% off your first purchase. So I really do appreciate you carving out a little bit of time to watch this week's episode. It always means a lot to me when people take time out of their busy schedule to spend it with me. So don't think that that is ever missed on me. I really do appreciate it. If you did enjoy this week's video, if you could give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And if you have any questions about the 5-day deal or my course or this video in general, please leave those in the comments section below and I'll get back in touch with you as soon as I possibly can. Thanks again. I really appreciate you watching the episode, and I will see you all next Wednesday. Bye.